Hi, Maria.
this. Thank you so much for doing this. I agree with Lucci in the sense it's unprecedented for us to hear your thoughts undiluted. I guess it is never easy to reform one organization, let alone an entire judiciary. You are the youngest in the Supreme Court. You're also the first female Chief Justice. Now, like Lucci, I'll toss two questions into my one. What is the biggest problem you have had to deal with to push through what you want? And then, in addition to that, you are also coming in as the Supreme Court Chief Justice at the time where technology is overtaking everything. So let me ask first the first question about you as Maria Lourdes Sereno, the Chief Justice, the youngest in the court, and the only woman leading this court.
The youngest Chief Justice, if I'm not mistaken, Teddy can correct me, is Chief Justice Moran.
Moran,
Okay.
Yes,
I'm
sorry.
the second youngest. But if you are going to consider that this era is the modern era, then I'm the youngest modern era Chief Justice. And I happen to be female. And loaded in the description of my gender is a history of looking at the female as loaded with so many obstacles and burdens. Actually, because my life has evolved in a way that I had to surmount one obstacle after another, I was never surprised by the amount of debris, obstacles that would present themselves along the way. After all, Maria, this is a 112-year-old institution that has never had the kind of spring cleaning that all institutions should normally have periodically. So if you haven't had that kind of reassessment, diagnostics, setting out the parameters, setting the scales again, you can just imagine the kind of work. And this is where the advantage of being a female who has had to multitask and who virtually has 10 hands doing things at the same time has afforded me. It is natural for me to multitask. It is natural. It is not strange for obstacles to come my way. But when you come to the question of the biggest obstacle, this is where I really need wisdom in. I have 18 years, and I have to deal with traditions in a 112-year-old bureaucracy. The expectations of our people rise exponentially as their exposure to other cultures that are more efficient and to the opening of alternatives of freedom that they are seeing before their eyes are rising. So, am I able to predict the level of expectations of our people in a way that we can be seen as sufficiently keeping in step with our bounden duty to reform and transform ourselves into an institution that can respond to those expectations? When do I say that people's expectations are already impossible, too much? When am I pushing myself too hard? When am I becoming too impatient? On my plate are several programs of action being done at the same time. I have a mind map that is comprehended in 4 pillars of reform with tentacles and branches from across the 4 pillars and all interlocking with each other. How do you try to run reform for a system where what I do with one affects the other? When am I correct in prioritizing one reform item over that of another? I have already identified to you my sense that one of the main things that I should attend to is shortening the period of detention for detention prisoners because anyway, they have a 20% conviction rate. So effectively, you are unjust to the extent that 80% of them are suffering undue detention in our detention cells. By any measure, that cannot be tolerated. So that is a clear priority for me. But there are others. The condition of our courthouses, the upgrading of the skills of our personnel, the manualization of our procedures, the teaching, the modernization of law school's outlook, and reform of the bar exams. What is to be prioritized? And I guess it also can be characterized as a common disease to accomplish everything all at the same time. I guess we have to make a choice, and we live and fall on whether our choice has been correct. I hope I am not wrong in the way I am prioritizing things. I hope also that I will be given the grace to really run these things in a way that is not also harmful to myself as a person. And we know how women can be too hard on themselves. That is something that you yourselves have commonly experienced. So that is the prism from which I cope with my day-to-day life.
Ma'am, if you don't mind, when you do this, when you're trying to reform a system, obviously people will be disenfranchised. And we're talking in a country with the most endemic corruption, among one of the highest. I guess, is there an instance that you can give us where you've had to deal, when you try to change the system will fight back?
Okay.
Something specific.
No, this is what I do. I know that there are soft points for access by the reform measures that I'm going to undertake. First, my philosophy is that the reform measures must be generated by the internal stakeholders themselves. I am very keen about the process. That is why we have the process mapping programs that are going on that are internally driven, not externally funded, mind you, where our personnel are really defining for themselves right now their various roles, and they are now doing a job audit and drawing up their own terms of reference. That had not been done before. Now, you give them a sense of ownership, and you tell them it is good for you to reform. Just imagine a public that appreciates what you do, that the public that says what you are given in terms of compensation and benefits, you deserve, because you serve with all sincerity and with all efficiency. And when I tell them that they can therefore hold themselves up high, and there will be a future for us when we can say that the judiciary is setting the gold standard for public service, then you can see the wellspring of hope and the drawing out of enough energy for them to be with me, with us, the collective leadership of the court in this reform path. Where is the point of resistance? Amazingly, technology has disabused the minds of people that things cannot be done. There seems to be the idea that technology is enabling things to move faster, so probably we can do things faster as well. I have already warned everyone, especially during the electronic courts presentation in Quezon City, where I said that the usage for information technology will remove intermediation of human brokers from the system, so that will allow us, Maria, to really focus on the points where, despite all the transparency measures, there will be secret deals in the future. And that you cannot stop unless you have the anti-corruption hard investigation being conducted by seasoned people, as Dean Jokno was proposing we set up. I am not yet at that point. At this point, what I have had is cooperation, because there is still belief that the stakeholders can own reform. There is still the belief that there is a lot of room for improvement. Now, if this is the end of the spectrum from which I am coming, and I will only get to the point of really dealing with the hard problems a bit later, I will tell you what happens then?